Hello everyone, this recording will introduce HTML. So at the end of the day, all interactive visualizations are basically just interactive web pages. So we need to understand a little bit of how web programming works. So the simplest possible web page you could imagine just has this form. Right? It has some sort of header saying what this page is about. It has an opening and a closing HTML tag. You have something called head and something called body. Usually anything placed in the header is going to be some sort of resource. So think about it like in R, you have to do load library. That is going to go into the head. The main content of a web page is going to be contained within these two tags, body. So how do you actually run or open a HTML web page? You're going to want to copy this text into a plain text file, save it with the suffix .html, and then open it in a browser. So, for example, if you go to the link that I have for the code, you'll see the source where I have all of this. I put this into a file called blank page. This is exactly what I showed earlier. And if you navigate to this in the browser, so I think I have it in one of these, page, right? If you navigate to that path, this is an empty HTML page. Okay. At some point, we're going to want to load the D3 library. Remember I mentioned this is like loading a library in R. This is how you load D3. Right now it's version 7. But we're not going to need to do this for this lecture. Okay. How do you actually create content? You can create content by putting it inside of this body open close tag. Anything between H1 will be a large header, H2 will be a smaller header, H3 will be an even smaller header. Anything between P tags, this is going to be text like it appears in a paragraph. So this is the example of the web page. If you just copied this into that, into a HTML file and open it in a browser. It's often useful to organize your HTML using group tags. So anything within a G, close G, is going to be grouped together, and you're going to be able to refer to them later on. So if we told D3 that I want the first group, we're going to be able to extract all the HTML within just that first group because we've placed it in a common group tag. If we wanted the second group, we would be able to get just this second group. And this is what this HTML page looks like. It's all very basic. So this doesn't look like data visualization at all so far. Where it will begin to look like visualization is when we start having SVG. Right? So SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. It's just a way of drawing graphics within the browser. So you can declare it by opening this open and close SVG tag. This is going to be saying, I want some sort of background canvas on which I can draw different shapes. And it's saying that I want the width and height of that canvas to be 500 pixels. Here I've drawn a rectangle, a circle, and a path. I don't know why the indentation is off here. It could just be vertical aligned. This rectangle is just a square because it has the same height and width. The circle, CX 250, 300, this is saying the location of this circle. Right? So it's 250 pixels across, 300 pixels down, and the radius is 10. Here I've drawn a path. I'm saying it's blue and it's empty. If I had not put none, it would fill it in with some color. And this long string here is giving the coordinates of the corners of the path. So the very first one says, move to 150, 150. That's where it starts. And then keep on adding line elements to 180, 180, and 210, 150. So it's just tracing out the coordinates. I could extend this arbitrarily long, and I could get these more complicated curves. So this looks all very rudimentary, but this is where all these visualizations are going to be made. If you're going to need a scatter plot, you're going to start with paths drawing the axis, and you're going to have a lot of circles that mark the points. If you want a lot of time series, you're going to need a way of drawing these sort of paths in a way that encodes data. But this is all to come. Okay. A useful idea. So we're going to often want to associate groups or elements on the HTML page with certain IDs or certain classes. The idea is that if you give all the HTML tags a certain class, so let's say I had a bunch of circles and I want half of them to be part of one data class, half of them to be part of another data class. An easy way to differentiate the style is to first associate them with a different class. Right. The reason is once you've associated it with a class, you can apply all sorts of style attributes without having to put it in the HTML page. So to illustrate, here I'm going to go change this earlier header, subheader kind of example, and I'm going to change the style of the header. But instead of changing it within the tag, right? Notice like here I was defining all these attributes within the tag. Instead of defining it within the tag, I'm going to define it in an external file, and the only thing I'm going to put in the tag is its class. Right, so I'm saying that this class now belongs to this fancy header class that I made up. And in a separate file, this style.css, I've placed this syntax. And what it's saying is look for anything with class fancy header. The dot just says look for classes. And apply these attributes. So it's as if I had put color and font family within this tag, if I had just typed it all out, but instead I'm able to do it with just one flag, just saying classes fancy header, it will apply all these attributes. So this is a way of keeping the HTML code from getting way too complicated while still applying a lot of custom appearance. Okay, so exact same as before, but it looks really different because I use this kind of fun font. I just found this font on the Google Fonts page. So classes are useful if you want to apply to many elements at once. Sometimes you only need to apply to a single element. In that case, it's enough to do an ID. So you can specify IDs in HTML, and that ID you can refer to in the CSS by using this pound sign. So usually you would use an ID if you want to apply a style to an individual HTML element, and you would apply a class if you wanted to apply that styling to multiple HTML elements. Okay, a very useful trick that we'll be using a lot in this class, you can inspect an HTML page by using some sort of developer tools. Every browser, you're going to be able to find some version of it. In Chrome, it's Control-Shift-J. So here's the empty web page I showed before. If I just do Control-Shift-J, it opens up this console, and I can look at the elements. This is exactly that blank HTML page that I showed before. And every single example from today, if you open it this way, you'll be able to see the code that you typed in. Okay, just a little example. This is the kind of template I usually start with. So if you want something that you can just copy and paste into all your exercises, it will usually look something like this. There's going to be a canvas for drawing the actual data visualization elements. There's going to be some JavaScript code, which we're going to put all the D3 code into. And we're going to need to load some D3 and some styling. So that's all the practical points. One very interesting conceptual idea is that you can think about all HTML pages as a tree. The reason is, if you look out here, there's a very natural kind of parent-child relationship depending on whether you're contained within these opening and closing tags, right? So here, HTML is the root of the page. All the other HTML tags are descendants of this root. The immediate children are head and body, so head, body, and actually there's one more script that's after body. And then you can see within head there are these 3 tags, so you can actually draw out this entire tree. So at the end, interactive visualization is going to be starting with some sort of tree, and then whenever the user interacts, you're going to need to change properties of that tree, or maybe you're even adding and removing elements of it. So think of, that's how interactive visualizations become dynamic. It's by taking a static HTML page and adding and removing and changing properties of elements.